friends, hello, welcome. I'm so glad that you're here. I'm Michelle, and I am an adult education instructor, both at my local program and here on YouTube. So let's dive in and learn about the GED, what it entails, what it's about. But my friends, if you are taking the HiSET test, you're actually going to want to watch the HiSET test video, not this GED test explained. But GED friends, let's get started. So the first thing I want you to remember is you're not alone in this process. There are thousands and thousands of people that are currently working on their GED, and there are thousands and thousands of people that have already earned it. Okay, so you're not alone in this process. And really, most students, they start here at the beginning. What is the GED about? And so again, you're not alone. Really, once you understand the test, it's actually simpler than you think it might be, okay? So let's walk through and explain the GED. So in this video here, you're going to learn what is on each of the tests, how long the tests are, and then what kind of questions you might expect. And then of course you need to have a passing score. And so this video will walk you through what score you need in order to pass those tests. Okay, so the GED is made up of 4 subjects. We have Reasoning Through Language Arts, which is abbreviated as RLA. So that's really your reading and your writing combined together in this language test. Mathematical reasoning, so it's not just adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing. There's a lot of reasoning, a lot of critical thinking that goes into that test. And then of course we have science and social studies. So it's just made up of those 4 tests. Okay, so the test is taken on a computer, and we have multiple choice, drop and drag, and short answer, although I don't know if I would actually say short answer because it's the essay that you're going to be writing. Now, you can take it one subject at a time, or however your local program says you need to take it. In my state, if you're 16 or 17, you need to be prepared for all of your tests before you can actually take the test, but your state might be a little bit different. And so in order to pass, you have to have a score of 145 on each of the subject areas. But if you score a little bit higher, 165 or more, that means that you're college ready. And so you definitely want to make sure you have a higher score if you're wanting to go to college. Okay, so the test times, they vary from 70 minutes, so just over an hour with social studies, all the way up to 150 minutes with the RLA. Now, the reason this test has a little bit more is because you are writing an essay during this test. Okay, so the RLA test, well, what's on it? Okay, so you're going to really go over reading comprehension. You want to make sure that as you're reading something that you know what to expect. Also, grammar and sentence structure, very important for that language component of the test. And then we have that extended response essay. So I really want you to focus on these particular skills as you're working on studying for that RLA test. So be able to find the main idea. One of my favorite ways to find the main idea is to think about a movie. My kind of go-to is Finding Nemo. So what is Finding Nemo? What is the entire movie about? Well, Finding Nemo, right? That is the main idea. And so if you can think about movies that you like, well, what is the main idea of that movie? If I were to summarize it into 1, maybe 2 sentences, what would it be about? So you need to transfer that skill into your reading. Making inferences. So that's really an educated guess. Work on those grammar skills. And then finally being able to write a clear and organized essay. So here's a quick tip. With the essay, you're going to want to write 4 to 5 paragraphs. And you're going to want to use evidence that is directly from the text. And I really have several playlists that will help you here on YouTube. So I have an essay, a GED essay writing playlist, as well as a GED language arts playlist. These are videos that are really going to help you as you're preparing for your GED or especially that writing portion of the test. It's actually not that bad. Okay, moving on to math. What's on the math test? So it's 2 parts. The first part, no calculator. The second part, you get a calculator. And so it's really going to focus on algebra. I think that's about 40% of the test. Also word problems and geometry. So make sure that you can handle word problems, friends. Word problems, I like to think that they give meaning to a math problem, right? Who wants to just go 4 times 5, which is 20, right? When you could say, I have 4 apples and 5 bushels of those apples. And so I feel like it just gives it meaning. So don't let word problems freak you out. And I actually have a lot of tips on my channel to help you with word problems. And then real life math skills are tested, which again, I like when it's real problems that we can maybe even relate to. Okay, so fractions and decimals, important for you to know, especially because those tend to be on the parts where you don't get to use the calculator. Okay, algebra, again, very critical to have a good understanding. Graphs and data, be able to read through those, comprehend those, and then geometry and measurement as well. So a tip is to really make sure that you know how to use the GED TI-30XS calculator. Here's a blown up paper version of the calculator. You can buy it maybe online or at Walmart for fairly inexpensive, maybe like 20 bucks. This is definitely going to be something that you want to buy and that you want to practice on. Although you'll want to check with your testing center to make sure that they are using this particular calculator. The GED has approved this, but maybe your testing center uses something else or maybe a simpler calculator. So definitely make sure you check with your testing center before you go out and buy one of these. Okay, so with the calculator, practice it before test day. It's not hard, but there are some nuances that you're going to want to make sure you know how to do. Okay, science. So we go over life science, physical science, and earth and space science. So you're going to read short experiments or maybe charts and analyze those. You're going to need to interpret the results of those experiments and apply what you know. So you don't need to memorize facts for the most part. I mean, there are some things you either know it or you don't. But I want to make sure that you know the scientific method. That is the most important thing on the science test. So again, make sure that you're really good at reading charts and graphs because that's huge on the science test. And most of the questions, they are data-based, and really focus on what the chart shows. Before I even like to jump into questions, I like to analyze, okay, what's going on in the chart? And then that makes me a little bit better at answering those questions. Okay, now we have social studies. So we have U.S. history and government, economics and geography, as well as data and map reading. So, similar to the science test, you're going to read passages about history or government. You're also going to interpret graphs, maps, and charts. And as a bonus, you're also going to sometimes have political cartoons that you'll have to analyze. And of course, we need to use evidence to support those answers. So focus on understanding the concepts. Again, you don't need to memorize too much. There are some concepts that it's good to know, but know how to analyze and think critically. So here's what the GED questions actually look like. So multiple choice, and there will usually be about 4 options with your multiple choice. Drag and drop, usually ordering something. And then we also have the extended response. That's on the RLA test, which is basically the essay that you are going to write. So here's how you can take it. You can take it online or else in person. Now, most of my students, I would say probably 95% of my students prefer taking the test in person instead of online. Because when you take it online, you have to have all these specific specifications, and in person, you just show up and you take the test, and you don't have to worry about all the other nuances of taking it online. And in my state, it's cheaper to take it in person than it is online. because you don't have to pay that proctoring fee. But each state varies based on your location. So take it at your local testing center, or like I said, online at home. But you will need a valid ID, okay? So this is a government-issued ID. Can't be your old school picture from 7th grade. No, you need to have a government-issued ID. So go down your DMV if you don't have a driver's license and get a government-issued ID. A passport also works. Okay, so the next steps. Enroll in your local education program. This is the most important thing for you to do if you're not already enrolled. Second, down below I have a free Purely Persistent GED test guide that you can follow along with, okay? So click the link down below for that. And then also subscribe to this channel for weekly lessons and motivation. Friends, I want you to remember though, that you've got this. You've got to believe in yourself. You can pass the GED. You already have a lot of the skills, and now it's time to use them. Maybe polish up a little bit on some of the concepts, but you can do this, my friends. But you need to start studying today, okay? Not yesterday, not last week, not tomorrow, not next week. You need to start today. So every step, everything that you do is going to bring you closer to your goal. Whether your goal be to go to college or a trade school, maybe your goal is to join the military or get just a better job or career. Each step that you're doing on your GED will get you just a little bit closer. Okay, my friends, thank you for being here, for sticking it out the whole video. I appreciate that. So I want you to do me a quick favor. Comment below and tell me, what state are you watching this from? I would love to hear, and I'd love to see the whole list of different states that people are located in. Okay, friends, believe in yourself just like I believe in you. And I will see you in our next video. Peace, friends, and God bless you.